Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, liquid money in retirement is essential, part one of our series on building a firm financial foundation for retirement with financial advisor Sean Humeston. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you.
Sean, we're talking about liquidity in retirement. You know, people say, well, you know, I have all my money tied up in qualified plans. I have all my money tied up, sometimes even in annuities, but we need liquidity in our retirement. Tell me, why do I need it? Where do I go to get it?
I think it's important to recognize that most people who have investments, have portfolios, even just safe money, having liquidity in retirement is extremely important, primarily due to the fact that if you need money, you know, the kids need money, the roof caves in, your AC goes out, especially here in Arizona, you know, you're going to have to provide some liquidity. And where do you get that is really the question.
Okay, so most retirees say, I want it to be a safe place, can't risk it in the market. I got to have access, so I can't have people worried about taxes and surrender charges if I can. I mean, I got to do some taxes, but as much as I can mitigate it as much as possible. I'm looking at basically, when you say liquidity, what kind of period are we talking about?
So it could range from as short as just a money market account that's purely liquid. I think that's real important in retirement to have a piece of that. How much that is depends on the individual. But a lot of what we do is what's called a laddered method. So you can actually have CDs or certificates that mature at different times where you have access to your money all the time. You know, every 6 months or every year or something like that. I
noticed that you promote both. You talk about laddering of CDs. You also talk about laddering of annuities. So there's reasons to do sometimes with certificates of deposit and sometimes annuities. What's the difference in your mind?
Well, you can imagine with lower interest rates now today, the concern, of course, is that the interest rates on CDs is going to be lower. So with annuity certificates, or what we call certificate annuities, which are shorter term contracts as short as a year, you know, you can get a better return on your money and still create that same ladder that you would with CDs.
Well, when I'm looking at 1 year, 2 year rates, you're probably around a point and a quarter, somewhere in that vicinity, or can I get better than that? Yeah,
with a certificate annuity, or let's just call it a CD or CA, right, is what they were sometimes refer to them as. You can get 1.5, 1.75 today, which naturally is going to be a little bit more than the company.
Now, they still want you to park it for a year, right?
Yep.
Okay, so when you're talking about real liquidity, I might have to look at a money market, not paying much, but it's there. I might have to look at a passbook account, and my checking account, that maybe they'll give me a 0.25, maybe. Yeah. All right, so I'm doing liquidity as a retiree because I know already I'm going to have problems. You know, you're going to have medical issues. You're going to have maybe your automotive, you said your house, things you have to fix up. You don't know about life just happens. Sometimes you just got to have it. Okay, so, but I'm also looking for liquidity, but I'm willing to say I don't need it today. I'm looking at for a little farther out.
Right.
So now, again, we're looking at rates. I'm on bankrate.com. I'm looking at, you know, basic rates here that are short term at 1.5, 15, and their 5-year rate. Some of these banks are at 2.25 for a 5-year. I noticed that you had that, but you also included annuity rates that were more than that. If I'm going to hold for 5 years, why shouldn't I get a better rate?
Exactly.
And by the way, a little side note, if I'm going to get a better rate, tell me, is there really a difference for the client between a CD at 2.25 and an annuity at 3.25, a whole point more, I'm getting more, but I'm getting tax deferral? Is there power, is there economic leverage for me not paying taxes every year?
Sure.
So talk to me about that.
Well, when you compare the CD, obviously you're paying interest on money that you're generally not spending every year, right? You get a 1099 INT that's going to create some taxable interest gain. With a deferred fixed annuity or a multi-year guarantee annuity, they refer to it as, you know, generally you're going to get that tax deferral, that power of tax deferred growth. And I think for some, if you're not spending it, why pay taxes on it? Now, eventually you will, so you're not going to get away from that. But there are strategies to actually get the power of the tax deferral today, and then, of course, wait till later on to either utilize the money or to pay the taxes then.
Okay, so if I'm willing to hold that long on a CD, I might get almost a whole point more on an annuity, and I don't pay taxes until I actually use it.
Yeah, and then the other concern, too, is that a lot of our clients, you mentioned a 5-year fixed annuity contract, a lot of those accounts have liquidity as well. 10%, 15%, 20% penalty-free withdrawals every year. So you can actually still gain that liquid need, but still maximize the return while you're not spending it.
So if you had to get to it, there's some, exit strategy to this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I noticed that you do a lot of build-outs. You have 3, 4, and 5 year fixed annuity rates or fixed CD, it depends upon the client's needs. You're looking at that laddering approach. So every 3 years, I have things coming due. We're going to look at the current, the Fed just raised the rate again. The next 3 or 4 years, it could happen again if we're doing well. That's a pretty good strategy for people.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too to keep in mind is that a lot of the accounts that we offer are what we call flexible. So if you did have a 3, 4, and 5 year term, as the 3 year comes due, some of our clients will add that money to their 4 year term or add it to their 5 year term, and you can continue to do that while maintaining the original maturity date of those accounts. So there's some validity there, and of course you can still get a better rate if like you said, if interest rates are higher at that time, you can purchase something new, but you can also get into something that you already have.
Now I was noticing, I looked out at the annuities that are out there. I mean, 20-year rates that are out there. I mean, they're sitting at around 3.7. I'm not really sure if you can get 3.25 for 5. If 50 basis points is really worth it to tie it up for 20.
It's not.
It's not. So people that recommend this, the math doesn't really work in the long haul, I think. And you're thinking the same?
Yeah, generally you're going to get the two types of people where they either want to save the money and leave it for the kids, right? Where in that case the term really doesn't matter, or they want to be able to utilize the money and have that liquidity. So you're absolutely right. It doesn't make sense to have something long term.
Now I noticed that the crossover rates, you're predominantly in your practice, you're at the 5 year. You don't go too much out. You have a few that are maybe a few people at 8 years, but really 5 years seems to be the cap because of the way our interest rates have been in the environment for the last decade.
Correct.
All right, so in your strategic thinking, think about the Fed, bumping it here, bumping it there. We might get a few more bumps. It's still a pretty good strategy to do the 3, 4, 5 laddering approach and rotating it, but probably not going too far out past 5 years.
Correct.
Okay, so when we're talking about liquidity, we're talking about short-term needs. Money markets could be for all the things that happen in life, from auto repair to roof repair to medical to long-term care. I might have little things that I have to do on that, deductibles with Medicare. But I also have these other areas where I really don't need it now. Might as well let it grow. Don't really want to pay taxes on it. That's what I'm hearing you say. And that could be another form of liquidity. So there's very, very short-term liquidity, and then there's this kind of between 0 and 5. Yeah, medium liquidity. Yeah. So people have to think about liquidity. That's what I'm hearing you say. Retirees. I'm a boomer. I'm looking at my group. We're all retiring. We need to have access to money, but maybe not all of it. Now, you said, I like this part. I want you to explain it. 10, maybe even 15% withdrawal without a penalty. Would I have to pay taxes on that withdrawal, though?
Oh, sure.
Probably. Okay. Sure. So if I pull that money out, I still have access to it. I just don't have access to all of it.
Right.
So if I have a 3, 4, and a 5, does that mean I get 10 from my 3, 10 from my 4, and 10 from my 5?
And even on some cases, the 5 year terms actually have a 15 to 20% per year withdrawal. So you even have more liquidity than the shorter term ones, the 3 and the 4.
Okay, so really when I think about it, if I'm taking a chunk of money, let's say I put $500,000 and I divided that, depending upon equally or not equally, depending on what my need is, that 3, 4, 5 year rate, I'm going to have 30% at the minimum.
That's right.
So it's not as tied up as people think. I think a lot of people have an imagination that if I tie it up in annuities, I don't have the liquidity issue.
Yeah, it's like a mental block, right? So if they think 5 years is just too long, I might need the money sooner than that. But when you really kind of educate them on the idea of that partial or that penalty-free withdrawal, it makes a huge difference.
Are all these annuities, do they have some kind of payout provision? So they could, let's say you said, I don't mind paying out one of my annuities. Could I get a 10-year lockdown certain payout?
Yeah, in some cases it's even shorter, only like a 5-year commitment. So if you purchased a 5-year fixed rate, and then let's say in a year you wanted to create an income stream, you can only be required to do it at least a minimum of 5 years, right, or longer.
So they have not only the savings capability, but the ability to generate income. Now, if I was ready, let's say the next 4 years, I would say a lot of people are looking at age 70. So I'm looking at myself 4 years from now. I'm going to be looking at numbers at age 70. I'm going to say, hey, I'm ready to take some income, and I might want to go not just 5, not 10, but I might want to go lifetime.
Right.
Can I do that with these kind of annuities?
Absolutely.
Now, I noticed you shop the market before you pull the trigger on these annuities. You're shopping the market. Hey, is the single premium immediate annuity the best? Is the deferred income annuity the best? Or maybe sitting in an index contract that has an income rider? You're always pricing this stuff out.
Right.
How can it change so much? I mean, Sean, it seems like it's changing every 30 days.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the economical factors. I think a lot of it has to do with where insurance companies are with their price points and their expenses. I think when we do shop that, it just gives us the ability to actually have the right product for the consumer.
Don't forget to watch our next segment on paying lifetime obligations with guaranteed lifetime income. Part 2 of our series on building a firm financial foundation for retirement. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on the show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, and financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.